Coming up on this episode of The Prodigal Life.
All the things that you didn't do, oh yeah, I made up for them. I did them all, Deacon. So, it's all
Dang.
good. Yeah, and then Nick and I, we probably could have partied at the same club if we weren't 20 years different in age. So, but...
So I had to make sure the kitchen was clean. But now again, I don't date myself here, but had to take messages. When someone called, I had to take a message, that kind of thing. And but the most important thing was to make sure my mom didn't sleep through her alarm.
Wow.
Are you away from your faith?
Do you wonder why you're Catholic? Do you really want to know more?
If God is so good and he made a beautiful and amazing world, then why does life feel so messy and difficult and painful sometimes?
Do you feel stuck and want to take your faith to that next level? Join us on The Prodigal Life as me and Ellen and Nick have an honest and open discussion about all things important in our faith life. Welcome to The Prodigal Life. I was a police chief.
I'm an interior designer and a real estate broker.
I was an opera singing, headbanging, heavy metal singer, womanizing, heretical, agnostic atheist, all around amazing person.
And stay tuned.
I'm a sinner.
Wow, you just kept going. I'm like, dang, man. I was like, what?
Come on down.
We're going to get real on this one.
That's what we got to do. That's the whole purpose.
I just said bleaching. You guys kept going. I'm like, God, maybe I should have said something else.
Yeah. No, it was good. That's fun. So just go, right?
Let's dive in.
All right. I am Ellen Holmes Steeves-LeBlanc. Yeah, I know that's really long. Those are all of my names. Anyway, and I am excited to be here. I am the founder of Destined for Truth, which is a organization that is going to try and find truth in the crazy world that we're in today. We'll be doing pilgrimages, books, podcasts, pretty much anything that has to do with finding Christ in your life and digging deep into your Christian faith journey. So that is just a little bit about me.
All right. Well, I'm Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. I'm a speaker and an author and a pilgrimage leader and a husband and a father and a deacon, a bunch of different things. You can find out about me at deaconharold.com. I'm so thrilled to be doing this podcast and sharing it with Ellen and with Nick. And I'm so glad you could be on the journey with us.
Yeah, and I am Nick De La Torre. Excuse me, I am Nicolás Felipe Francisco de la Torre Soler Garcia Tío, and I am the president of Awake. I just had to beat you guys out, so I added my confirmation saint, my middle name, all of the last names for all of my grandparents. Anyways, president of Awaken Catholic, super stoked to be here having this conversation with you guys, and eventually we'll get into like how this came to be. We met each other at a conference, and this is just going to be such an awesome. I'm excited about this. This is going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
One of the ways that you can support us is go to theprodigallife.com. There you will see our patron community, the light bearers we will serve. And you can support us financially to help us to continue to bring you some excellent content that you will find nowhere else in the world except for right here at Awaken Catholic.
Wow. Man, you're preaching to my heart. All you're doing is talking about our patron community and
Amen.
getting lit on fire here.
Yeah.
And it should also be said, there's going to be some cool perks and stuff that are exclusive to people that are members of that community. Also, the prodigallife.com is where you'll find the latest episodes and stuff. Is great place to point people to. So yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. I can't
Absolutely.
wait.
And Ellen, what do you want to tell us about?
I'm going to tell you all about the Awaken Catholic app, which is amazing. The fun part for me about the Awaken Catholic app is when all of Messenger and Facebook and everything shut down, the Awaken Catholic, their messaging app worked. So you can do that. But it's not just about that. They've got podcasts. They've got ways for you to get involved in your faith. And I highly recommend that you download the app by either going to your Play Store or Apple, or you can go to the awakenapp.io on your browser. So I recommend getting the app as quickly as you can, because you never know when you're going to need to reach out to somebody and nothing else is going to work.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Oh, man.
So we're going to share a little bit about our faith journeys, how God moved us from where we were to where we are today. You know, and so many people I think can relate with that, because a lot of people are stuck. You know, and I found, Nick and Ellen, when sometimes in our faith, when we get stuck at a certain place in our faith life, we get comfortable. But what we have to look at is Jesus Christ on the cross, because that's uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
But it's through that uncomfortableness that helps us take our faith life to that next level.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no Easter Sunday without Good Friday. Right? And most of life is Good Friday. So we're going to talk about a little bit of our Good Friday from the past, and the hope that people that are watching and listening can say, wow, you know, they were at a spot where I was, or here, I'm at that spot right now. Here's how I could take my faith life to that next level.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think even that idea of being comfortable is so complex, because some of us can be comfortable in like that. We've plateaued in our faith life, like we're doing these things, and maybe we're not growing, but we feel good about where we're at. But other people can be comfortable in the sense of, like, even if they're in a really crappy situation, they don't want to risk, having to release control of their lives, or risk, having to end certain relationships or whatever. And so there's like a comfort in what is known, in what our literal comfort zone is, even if it's like a negative thing, even if we're in a crappy part of town, like, oh, I can't move out of this crappy part of town. This is all I know. Well, but you could move out of that crappy part of town and your life could be better, as a metaphor. I mean, unless that's literal for you, if you're watching or listening, I don't know. Move out. Anyways, but yeah, I think that idea of that getting stuck in the comfort can take so many different forms.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, it's true. I mean, for me, I was a very poorly catechized Catholic, so I knew nothing. I'd never read my Bible. I didn't know how to say the rosary. I knew nothing about my faith, even though I was born and baptized and confirmed into the faith, which is kind of a sad testimonial if you really got to talk
tragic,
about that.
Yeah.
But on the backside of that, and more about what you're talking about being uncomfortable, is I just kind of sat there. Like, I was okay to be stagnant in my faith journey, just going to Mass, participating, waiting to be gone, you know what I mean? Not really understanding what was going on. But I was okay with that. So I just kind of rested on my laurels.
But hold on. But did you realize at that point that there was something off? That there was something wrong? I mean, even though you couldn't articulate
it. I was unchallenged.
Okay.
I mean, like, I knew there was more. I mean, I always knew there was more. But I had no way to know how to go get it. Like, there was I didn't have a door. Like, until God knocked so loud that I had to, finally answer, and that'll be later. But for me, it was just, what do you want, Lord? And it was always like that. It's just like not resting and not willing to be necessarily uncomfortable, even though my life was a train wreck. So even though I was in the misery and I was, pretty much, at the crucifixion, I didn't know that I had an option, and I didn't know how to go find it.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know. For me, growing up in a home where my father wasn't really present, or when he was drinking most of the time, kind of a thing. And a lot of people know that, but a lot of people don't understand is what life was like every day. And helping when my father wouldn't come home, and helping my mother manage our family. So basically a typical day was get up in the morning about 7:00, and I'd make sure that my siblings, I'm the oldest, right? So I had to make sure my brothers were up, my sister was up, make sure everybody ate breakfast, got ready for school. My mother was a cardiac care unit nurse.
Oh my gosh.
She worked from 11 to 7. And the days she wasn't working overtime, she would get home about 7:20, 7:30. She would honk the horn, and that was the signal. Everybody outside into the car, take us to school. She would come back, get several hours of sleep, wake up, make dinner. We'd come home. We'd have dinner together, family, and then she went to bed, and I would take over. So I had to make sure the kitchen was clean. But now again, I don't date myself here, but had to take messages. When someone called, I had to take a message, that kind of thing. And but the most important thing was to make sure my mom didn't sleep through her alarm.
Wow.
So it wasn't Now, I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to make sure that the alarm went off. She said, make sure I am up and walking around before you go to bed.
Wow.
So I would knock on, I would hear the alarm. And if I didn't hear it, I'd knock on the door. Mommy, it's time to get up. You know, and once I heard her up and walking around, that's when I would go to bed. And the same thing would happen the next day. Now, it got harder in high school because I was a wrestler. So I was on the wrestling team, and I was involved in a lot of different sports and things like that. And so some of my siblings helped, and they could manage themselves a little better, as they were older. So I didn't have to keep doing that same routine. But there were many times my mom worked overtime, so we could have the things that she didn't have. Many times she went to work with holes in her shoes and runs in her stocking. I noticed that, and I didn't think, wow, she's embarrassed. I thought, wow, she's doing that so that we can have opportunities she never had. And I never took that for granted. Wow. Never. To this day, I never took that for granted. It's her love and sacrifice that helped me to get to where I am today. Not only materially, but in my faith as well.
Now, was she born Catholic?
No, we're from Barbados in the West Indies. We're immigrants to the U.S. My mom was the first Catholic. She was Methodist and converted to the Catholic faith in high school.
Okay.
And then so I'm the first baptized Catholic in my family.
Wow.
What age did you start having to be a parent?
About 12.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't resent it.
Yeah,
I don't, because it's from that I am very organized. My wife will tell you she thinks I have an illness. She thinks she's OCD, because I'm so meticulous about stuff. But it's that organization, because it helped me in my study. Like, how do I organize my materials when I'm studying? Right. It helped me in so many other aspects of my life that is something I actually don't regret.
And you probably help do homework too with your siblings.
Yeah, I mean, did I miss on some childhood stuff? Maybe. Right. But when I got to high school and stuff, I mean, I had a normal high school. Okay. I mean, I didn't drink or anything. I didn't go to parties, any crazy stuff like that. But I went to an all-boys high school, St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. It was really transformative for me, and felt a vocation to monastic life at that point too in high school. And I just had basically that dynamic at home was interesting, and then we were gang neighborhood as well. So a lot of friends I grew up with are dead or in jail.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting time. I don't think about that time very much, but I think about the experiences and how God used those experiences as a launching point, as a catapult to push me forward in my faith.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow. Was there ever a time when you were growing up in that dynamic where you were like struggling to accept your reality? I mean, because that's hard. I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
That's a great question. I think the thing I struggled with the most was not being able to talk to my parents about things. When you're that age, there's stuff that you just want to talk to your parents about. I couldn't talk to my father. There's no way in hell I'd have talked to him. I'm just being real here. It wasn't happening. But my mother, I felt she was already under so much pressure financially to make bills paying, getting us to where we needed to be, and all that stuff. I didn't want to burden her even more with my issues. That's the way I felt. And I actually talked this with her because she lived with us the last 3 years of her life. And we had some very candid, very personal conversations about growing up. And I told her, I said, Mommy, I didn't want to feel like I was burdening you. And she says she wish I would have talked to her.
Right.
Because she felt that she wasn't showing us enough love because she kept asking, she goes, I didn't think I showed you enough love because you were having to fill kind of two roles, and I wish you would have talked to me, but I couldn't talk to you because I felt you were, and so we didn't talk. But I'm glad we did at least have that conversation before she passed.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
What was your story like? How'd you grow up?
Well, we were in it was a Catholic household, and the summer after my fourth grade year, we were gonna relocate from this area here in Ohio to Miami, Florida, where I was born, actually, in Miami. And instead of relocating to Miami, Florida, my parents got a divorce. Which when you're considering options in life, it's like, hey, something really cool or something really terrible. Why not just go with the terrible option? That's the route they chose. But it's such an interesting paradox. I talked about this recently on my podcast on Awakened Catholic, the Awakened Catholic show. The paradox of how terrible my parents' divorce was, and the years of custody battle and all the bull crap that just made life awful. The paradox of that, because like if it weren't for that, I never would have met the woman that is my wife and my life and the mother of my children, and like she's incredible, and I hate to fathom or speculate about any reality in which I wouldn't be spending my life with her, but it literally is only because of my parents' divorce, and so that paradox is just so mind blowing to me, because God has done so much crazy cool stuff as a result of it. Even my coming to God, coming to faith at all, is a result of my relationship with her. Because we started dating our senior year of high school, and I was just a real piece of work. Like, no one should have let me date their daughter. I wouldn't let my daughter date who I was then.
Oh,
wow. But like it's a fruit of that relationship. It's not like it went perfectly. It was rocky because I was a real piece of work, and she was a very Protestant girl, and but so it was messy. But man, just like. Yeah, so divorced parents, very kind of differing views of like what is good, true, and beautiful in the world. Very differing views of like what Catholicism is. So that was very confusing growing up in the two different households that were two different versions of Catholicism.
Can you tell a little bit about the difference?
Yeah, so one of them, in one household, we had like a real... authentic concern for a true and good expression of like morality and living chastely and stuff, at least in the way it was being taught to us. So not to say everything was being executed well in that house, but
we're sinners
in principle, and then in the other house, a lot more of a relaxed approach to some of that, while at the same time being stronger in other areas, like that parent would spend a lot of time volunteering for the homeless shelter and like doing, so a lot of the corporal works of mercy were concerned for there. And it was really, so I got, there were good and bad in both households, and I think that a lot of people face that today, even when they grow up in a household where there isn't divorce. Like there's just so many different ways of seeing things, but sadly so many kids are growing up in households with divorce now, and it's just a reality. So yeah, I grew up super confused, really stopped caring about like what was right when it comes to religion, like who was right. In high school, kind of going to church became more about being around whatever girl I was chasing at the time. So I visited pretty much every denomination that Bowling Green, Ohio has to offer.
Looking for girls.
Well, not looking for girls. I would go to whatever church because the girl I was pursuing was going there already.
Got it.
Yeah. And it was really interesting because the way that God used that ultimately is so mind-blowing to me, because I was doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
But in my work now as a minister, as someone who like is preaching and like teaching, I came into the game with this crazy broad understanding of what all of the different denominations got going on, because of that experience. And not most people get that.
Yeah.
And so that's been
true.
super interesting. But I would say, after high school, like I mentioned, it wasn't all perfect after we started dating. Ultimately, after high school, like moved down to Miami, Florida to try to, I think, bring my journey full circle, because we were supposed to have moved there when I was a kid and we didn't.
Okay.
And it just, makes it easier to make bad choices when you're in a big city like Miami, Florida without your parents.
Yeah.
But ultimately when I was there, like, man, I just went into, I was in some of the darkest and hardest times of my life there, some of those scenes in movies where people's lives are spinning out of control. Like I'd wake up in places I didn't recognize with people I didn't know, not really knowing what had happened the night before. Like it was really, really hard and a lot of fear. Like I would just be in the middle of downtown Miami, having just missed the last metro rail to get back to where I was staying, and like I don't know anyone here, and there isn't anyone around except for some homeless people. Like, how am I going to get home? Right. Like just very scary situations.
And in the midst of that, did you ever think about God?
Well, so I was when I was down there, I was invited to sing at a church that was, now I understand, a Unitarian Universalist church. Again, I got a real wide flavoring of everything. And, I loved singing. I loved being in the spotlight. I loved an opportunity for people to be like, wow, he's really good at stuff. So like I did it, and it didn't matter to me that there was Unitarian Universalists. It was a church and I was going to sing. So I did it. And really in my time there, for a while, it kind of reignited interest in me in faith and in the idea that we're called to a higher plane of existence. We're all called to something more. We're all called to ascension in the language of more of the New Age talk. Like ascending is kind of like when we level up as a person, right? We reach that next threshold. We would think of that as sanctification or in more Eastern Catholic language, divinization. But I was always intrigued by that. I always wanted to mean more than what I thought I did, So I got very excited by those notions, and eventually, though, it just started to kind of grate on me that, like, there really was no truth that they were positing. It was like, make up whatever crap you want.
Okay.
And their Bible was The Secret. I don't know if you're familiar with The Secret.
Yes, Rhonda Byrne's book.
Yep. In the documentary. And it's basically this idea that we are the gods and that we can manifest whatever we want to manifest. And that
sounds dangerous.
Oh, it's terrible. It's really bad. At its core, it's actually satanic.
I was going there.
Yeah.
I was going
there. It actually says that you are gods in the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now Jesus says that too, but it's very different contextually.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus calls his gods with lowercase g's.
But he's quoting from the Psalms.
Right.
Where it says, you are gods and you are children of men. I mean, it's that completely different context than The Secret.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like we are to be perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect. Like we're pursuing a participation in the divinity of the Trinity, not that we are assuming upon ourselves that we are the shit and we are the ones that are like, we're in charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what The Secret proposes. We're in charge. I liked this idea at first. But eventually I'm walking around in the bookshop for this church, and literally it's like every major world religion and philosophy is on display there. And it's like a big buffet line of, put together your own cocktail.
Just pick what you want.
And
believe what you want.
It ultimately was the last straw for me. I was just like, none of this is real. God isn't real. And it drove me away from faith altogether.
Wow.
And
agnostic or atheist?
I was like, it was a thin line, but I was straddling that line. Yeah.
Wow.
So eventually I moved back here because I couldn't stand being without Alina, who's now my wife. Thanks be to God. I started going to a non-denominational church with her and her parents to please them. Joined the worship team, even though I didn't believe because I was that good of a person. But eventually...
Plus it was a gig, right?
It was a gig.
It was a gig. You're a performer. You're a singer,
yeah, exactly.
Impress your girl.
Yeah,
you're in the youth choir. Come on, there you go.
Exactly.
So God chiseled away at my hardened heart over months, and eventually there was a sermon where I just like broke down in tears, and I just I knew I needed saving, didn't know what it looked like, and God used the softening of my heart in that moment to kind of reveal new things to me, like the theology of the body, which ultimately sent me head over heels for the Catholic Church. So
Wow.
that's a real nutshell version of that. But
Yeah, well, we'll delve
Yeah.
deep. We'll delve deeper.
Yeah,
We'll delve
yeah.
deeper.
Excellent.
Ellen, you only lightly teased us on your story.
Oh, my story is crazy. It's insane. It's crazy. But the funny thing about it, though, is I came from the Beaver Cleaver family. I mean, my parents were married 50 years.
Wow.
They met at a party when they were 8 years old, and they started dating when they were 16 and got married at 22 and had 50 years of marriage. I mean,
Wow.
and they loved each other. I mean, it wasn't always perfect, but I grew up in that. And my dad was a convert. He was a Congregationalist that converted after he married my mom and became Catholic. But, this was during, I'll gently say, the 70s. And it was, I'll just gently say, the 70s. So it was a lot of kumbaya.
Okay.
And it was just...
Were you guys part of a cult? Or
No.
Okay.
We went to Mass pretty regularly. I went to Catholic school for 5 of my 12 years of, education. We never said the rosary together as a family. My father and I have talked about that, and and he regrets that deeply now. And we always said grace. I mean, there was always a grace. But we went to Sunday Mass. We went to Easter Mass, Christmas, of course, and we would have the Advent wreath and the manger, the Nativity. We did all of that. But there was never. We would have hour-long dinner conversations we dined at my house. That's just how I was raised. I was raised eating a full dinner with my family. I have no memory of ever having a religious conversation at my table.
Wow.
It just, and maybe it did happen at some juncture, but it was never, it's not in my memory. So, I attempted, to figure it out, but I was drawn in so many different ways. And I had a lot of very interesting, almost mystical experiences when I was a very small child. I knew Jesus was real. I never doubted that. I always believed in the real presence. I didn't know why. It was never a question. Growing up, Holy Thursday was always the most important day of the year for me, because I knew that without that, none of the rest of it ever made any sense, because Jesus came to die. So, and I always knew that. So, if you only really go to Mass on Christmas and Easter, you're watching me born, and then you're watching him be killed. And if you don't have anything in the in between, it's a void. Mm-hmm. That's a really big void. And if you're going to a Sunday Mass in the 70s, that's hard. You know what I mean? Because you got, it's not. There's no true. I'm not saying fire and brimstone. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm looking for. Although that sometimes it's due. But, you want to hear truth. You need to hear truth. I mean, I never even knew there was another form of the Mass. So there's that. You know what I mean? I mean, I grew up with a Novus Ordo. That's all I grew up with. So I didn't even know that there was a Latin Mass. I've been to 5 so far. I went to my first one last year. And it was beautiful. I didn't really understand it, but I knew why I was there. And I knew that it was because it wasn't about me. Mm-hmm. I knew that instinctively, that it was all about Christ, which is what, of course, it is all about. So growing up, and I was wild. I was a rebel. I mean, you all, you're like a choir, you're like a church boy, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I had a call, to be, and I don't think I ever thought about being a nun in my entire life. That just never passed through, Deacon. But it was always a struggle because I was such a rebel. Mm. I mean, and all the things that you didn't do, oh yeah, I made up for them. I did them all, Deacon. So, it's all
Dang.
good. Yeah, and then Nick and I, we probably could have partied at the same club if we weren't 20 years different in age. So, it was a wild time. I was a child of the 70s and 80s. I mean, and I lived a secular life. And I had a crucifix on my wall and a holy water font. And in the midst of that was whatever being a Catholic in 1980 looks like. Yeah. Which was superfluous. I was what I call now a surface believer. I had no depth to my faith. I didn't understand anything that Jesus had done for me, and I didn't really go seeking why. I didn't know I had a guardian angel. I had no idea what that meant.
So what do you think that surface did look like?
The surface believer?
Like for you in your context, like what was that surface that you did believe? What would that look like?
Like I said, I always believed, like when I went to Holy Communion, that was Jesus.
Okay.
Like that was never a gray. Yeah. I mean, like, and I don't know why people make that complicated.
But the piece about having gone to confession for sin, you did make that connection.
So you
didn't go to confession before you received Eucharist.
Oh, no,
so you didn't know you were receiving unworthily.
No.
You just knew,
I had a straight
I got to go to
hell,
church,
Deacon.
and I got...
Had I died at any juncture before 4 years ago, I was not going to see God unless my grandmother had prayed a whole lot of rosaries for me and God felt sorry for me.
We're all glad it didn't happen that way.
That's right. That's right.
But that's just what it was. I mean, and by the grace of God, and there have been miracles in my life. I mean, like, I fell off a 70-foot cliff.
What?
And lived and walked away with 3 little scratches on my leg and went out to play.
Were you like
I was 13.
Were you like in a bubble? Like how did that?
My brother watched it. He doesn't really know how to talk about it to this day. It was a miracle.
What did you land on?
Rocks.
Like, what?
It's in Guilford, Connecticut. I can take you to the spot. You can look. I mean, it might have been higher than that. I don't know. I remember the rocks going out, and then I can remember like this massive piece coming over me, and I was like, oh. And then I got up at the bottom.
Wow.
And I was bleeding in my leg, and my brother took off his T-shirt and wrapped it around my leg, and
that's incredible.
But that's just, when God has a plan for you, and you're not, even if you're so far gone that you don't think that God even wants to know who you are, He's still coming for you.
But that goes to show you had that experience at 13.
Yeah,
but
I
it
never
didn't
knew it was
transform
God.
the way of way you lived or anything.
No.
It informed how you thought, how you believed, how you lived your faith. It just happened, and then you just moved
I just went on with life.
Yeah.
And see, that's what happened to me when I was 7. I mean, I've had several experiences throughout my life, 7, 12, 14, 15, 21. I mean, like, where I should have, like, run to Christ. And it's been like, what do you want from me? Oh, no, not this girl. This girl is the one that's running, plays in traffic, runs with scissors. That's me.
Right off of 70-foot cliffs?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really want to. I mean, it just happened. But so it took something massive in order for me to finally go, oh, maybe God does. Maybe this whole thing is real. Maybe there's more to this than what I thought. But I was 50.
Wow.
It took 50 years of me kicking and screaming through life and suffering and making really bad decisions and losing things and hurting people and being a horrible human being, all the while putting on the face of trying to be a good human being, because that's just who we are as people.
Naturally.
You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be accepted, but nobody wants them to know the real dirt that you have within you. And it just took a long time. And then finally, through the grace of God and me finally he knocked so loud in 2017 and 18 that I just was like, okay, I surrender. We're going to give this a roll and see where it goes, not knowing that it was going to lead me here.
So give us a tease. I feel like in the next episode we should talk about what that knocking on the door was for each of us.
Yeah.
But give us a tease. What, just like a real tease. What was, in 2018 or 19, whatever that was, what did that look like?
It was being very aware of the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Like I was very aware of the Holy Spirit.
Made himself known.
Yeah, and there was a witness to that too. So it'll be fun when we continue.
Oh, shoot dang.
Well, until then, don't forget to go to prodigallife.com and join our patron group, Light Bearers We Will Serve. And we'd love for you to be the part of that, and come join us again. This was just a lot of fun, wasn't it? Having a real discussion about real things in life that matter. And we're so glad that you're here. And you are welcome to join back. Invite your friends and come on and just sit down with us as we continue to talk about how God has moved in our lives, how God's love and how God's grace and how God's peace has really affected us in a way that we are all now, right? Light bearers, bearing the light of Christ.
That's what we're doing. We're called to serve. We will serve.
Amen.
Amen.
Not like that other guy.
Yeah.
No.
That first light bearer.
But we raised the bar.
That's right.
And St. Michael's got this all under control.
Yeah.
Amen.